All the wheels are flat, fenders are broke. I think the seat is missing. Fenders all taped up. No gas cap. Got a broken cluster, gauge cluster. Big time. This came out of the scrap pile, out of a free metal drop off, and straight out of the scrap bin. Somebody threw it in there. So I wonder if it might run. If it might run, then it might be worth patching up the tires and fenders and see if she'll rip. 2011. That's about 7 years old, but it's only a Chinese pit bike. 110 Sasquatch Grunt Deluxe. Oh my goodness. Deluxe. This must be the fancy one. Look at the front wheels are wider than the back wheels. Something's not right here. I think that's supposed to be a rear wheel. I think somebody put that one on there. Hydraulic rear brakes. Looks like it has one of those spark arrestor silencers. No chain. Well, there's a chain there, so that's probably the one. Oh my goodness. No battery. But I found the battery wires and I ran them over here to a battery just to see if it has any life. To see if anything happens when you turn on the ignition. This is not the best battery, but it should be good enough for test the ignition. I just got the terminals on there, positive and negative. See what this, if there's any excitement going on. Oh my goodness, 3, 4, 5, 6. 289 kilometers. How many miles would that be? 100 and some kind of miles or something. Look at the webs, boys. Oh my goodness. There's even a spider in there too, I think. Ew, goodness. Looks like the left signal is on. Left signal. Left signal. I don't see any signal switch here anywhere, so that's kind of weird. High beams. Low, high. Oh my goodness, the headlights work. Neutral, high, low. So I think over on the right side, that's your gear indicator. Neutral. Now where am I? Oh, now I'm back in neutral. Reverse. Neutral. I think that's the battery indicator. Maybe the battery needs some juice. That front rack has got a big whoop-de-doo right there, and then it must have been a good hit because it pushed this back, bent, or looked like it hit maybe something sort of roundish like a tree maybe, and it hit, and impact and transferred went back. The impact went back and bent this bar here too, so that's supposed to be straight across. And this bumper on this side is pushed all the way back. I can barely get 2 fingers. I can't even get 2 fingers in there. between the headlight and the bar. And over on the other side there's a mile of space, or lots of space. So this is all torqued and twisted in the front. I noticed that the rack is interfering with the handlebar a little bit. It's not really interfering with the handlebar, but it's pushed back and it's chafing these wires a little bit. And there's one corner on the other side where if you turn it, it tries to pinch the wires. So that's no bueno. Can't have the wires getting pinched off. So I'm taking these bolts out of here. They're just 10mm metric, and there's 2 at the front and 2 at the back, and I'm just going to take that rack off. Well, I got all the bolts out of there, and just like, ta-da! What a twisted piece of metal that is, oh my goodness. That's where the front rack used to bolt on and go across here. And one of these wires here, this one right here, on the inside, see that? That's from the rack being pushed back and the handlebars moving, and it turned too tight one way and it's pressure on the rack. That's why I took the front rack off, because I don't want to be pinching any wires or anything like that if I'm going to see if this junk might run. You know, I gotta say, underneath things look pretty decent. The carburetor is nice and clean. It looks like new, actually, fairly new. Nice and clean carburetor, air filters on there. That coil pack looks like new too. And the frame is actually clean and painted under here. Frame's in decent condition. So for now I'm just running the battery cables out the side and just testing things. I'm gonna fog the cylinder before I attempt any start to see if it'll turn over, and make sure it's got oil in the crankcase. This is a 110cc Honda clone copycat motor. So it looks just like a Honda motor. And 110cc 4-stroke. So that's a good thing, because those are pretty easy to work on. Well, the spark plug was only finger tight. I spun it out with my fingers. NGKR. Focus. NGKR CR7HSA. A little bit of carbon, but not too bad. So now I can fog the cylinder with some fogging oil or something. If I squeeze the brake, the starter works. So that's good. That's good to know. So there's a safety switch, there's a brake light switch, and there's a switch built into the brake. So if you squeeze the brake, I don't know if it has a lock or not, but if you squeeze the brake, the starter will work. I can't do it while I'm holding the camera right now, but so I'll go ahead and put the spark plug back in. The cylinder should be lubricated, make sure it's got oil, and I wonder if it might start. This is something I've never seen before. Does anybody know what this is? There's this white thing here, and it's like a momentary switch. It seems an awful lot like a button to me. So if I hold that in, I don't know if I can do all this while I'm holding the camera. Okay, I got my camera. I had to set my camera down. So here's what happens with the starter. No, nothing. But if I push that button on the rear end, you get fire. That green and black 2-wire plug there, that one was unplugged, and I thought maybe it was a problem, so I plugged it back in. I wonder if this is the safety switch, or I don't know, I guess it's a safety switch. What color are they? I wonder if those are the green and black ones. This one here, that might be the one. Well, I unplugged it again. That's the way they had it, or that's the way it was. So I'm guessing that they had this bypassed, this here, because when I unplugged it again just now, where's the spark plug? I keep losing it. Okay, we got fire now, and I'm not pushing the button, that safety button. So I guess it was unplugged for a reason. That seems fine with me. Now we got spark. Now maybe I can see if it'll run, hopefully. It's a little bit smoky at the tailpipe for a 4-stroke, but I didn't really check the oil yet. I probably should shut it off and check the oil.
Yeah, because you never know what they done.
I've got hose. I stuck a hose down in there. It's a little bit low on oil, just a little. So I stuck a hose down in there, and I got some of this semi-synthetic Lucas stabilizer. Friggin' right. So I put a little bit of that in there, and the junk seems to run good. It smokes a little bit, but it could be because it was low on oil or it's been sitting. Plus I had some SeaFoam in the cylinder when I fogged the cylinder, so no big deal there. It's a 2011 and it runs, so it might be worth putting some tires and plastics on. It might be worth fixing. So with small engine, troubleshooting a small engine, basically you need 2 things: fuel and ignition. And fuel, ignition, and oxygen. So first thing I did was put a little bit of fuel in it and made sure that the fuel was getting to the carb, and then I checked for ignition. That was took a minute to get the spark there, but figured that out, and she runs. So like I said, since it runs, it might be worth fixing, but that's a matter of opinion. Obviously somebody felt like it wasn't worth fixing when they threw it in the scrap bin. Put the oil cap back on. It's in behind this boot plate, so it's not super easy to get at, but you can always go in behind the fender too. That's kind of how I did it. I put one hand in behind the fender there. Oh my goodness, my camera won't even focus whatsoever. But yeah, you can stick one hand in behind the fender there. This fender is busted. But now that I got some Lucas and the proper amount of oil in it, a little bit of stabilizer, just for the heck of it, let's see how she sounds. I'm gonna have to put the brake on again. You gotta have the brake on to hit the starter button. It's just, I put the emergency brake lock on again. There's a brake lock here, so I put that on because I can't hold the camera and run the brake with the safety switch. You gotta run the brake. Brake lights are on. Anyway, with the safety switch, you got to run the brake to run the starter. Might let it run for a minute and see if any of that smoke clears up. A good 4-stroke with a small engine like this, it shouldn't smoke very much at all. But I put SeaFoam in the cylinder and I put SeaFoam in the gas tank, so I think it's gonna be, a lot of that is probably from the SeaFoam. I only put a very small amount of gas in, so the SeaFoam doesn't have very much gas to mix up with. I'll have to run a tank, put some fresh fuel in the tank before I can diagnose the smoke. I've got a feeling that's just from the SeaFoam. SeaFoam. Yeah, so I put some of that in the tank. I wasn't sure how long the carburetor was sitting. Holy frig, look at her chooch now. Holy, just like Cheech and Chong, oh my goodness. What's going on over here? Wow. Whew. Yeah, it smells like SeaFoam. So I think that smoke is just the SeaFoam. There's something smoking in here. It's probably the exhaust. Yeah. Yeah, the exhaust hasn't got hot in probably a while. And when I put the SeaFoam in the cylinder, I fogged the cylinder with SeaFoam. And I probably spit some out on the exhaust. The engine runs good though, and I'm not too concerned about the smoke because of the SeaFoam treatment. You can see it on the tire. The tire's wet there when I fogged the cylinder. The spark plug is right there. I took the spark plug out, put SeaFoam in the cylinder, and let it sit for a few minutes, and then I turned it over without the spark plug and blew anything that's inside the cylinder. We take the spark plug out and hit the starter, it'll just blow the stuff out. So she blew some out on the tire there. Thing runs good though, and I think that's what that would be the first thing to look for in a piece of questionable equipment is the heart. Is the heart any good? If the heart's any good, then maybe you might be able to patch up the rest. Might be worth fixing up the rest.